Hello everybody and welcome to BenivoBites. We are live and it is great to see everybody out there. So if you're out there, wherever you are in the world, please hit the screen, say hello, tell us who you are, where you are in the world, and we look forward to seeing you. So hi there to Christina, to Louise, Neil, and yes, we are going to be giving you the immigration trends. To Henri, hello everybody, great to see you there. To Suzanne from Connecticut. So people are coming in from all over the world. This is so exciting to see you all today. And we've got an amazing show lined up for you today. We really have. Today, of course, it is BenivoBites. It's the world's first mobility technology show. And you know how it all works. Join the conversation. Please write in the comments box. I know that many of you are already. And just let us know what's going on. Today, we've got a really interesting show. I'm delighted to say we've got Maria Bouwsma with us, and we're going to have a live case study with Liberty Global. Liberty Global is a great cable company, telecoms company, and they got brands all over the world that you will undoubtedly know. And Maria's going to be telling us all about her program and about how they are using technology to support their program. And then next week we're back and we've got a really fascinating show for you next week. I'm delighted to say that we've got not one but two mobility professionals. We've got Maurizio Chavez and Karen Hale. Karen's with Unity and Maurizio is with BD. And they're going to be talking about a subject I think is dear to everybody's heart. And that is, we call it Tales from the Front Line. But basically what it's about is stress, I suppose, and difficult matters that we've been going through, and you know, if you like, stories that we've all dealt with, dealing with our assignees, the people we've been moving over the last few years, and especially, of course, with everything that's been going on with the pandemic and all the stressful situations, and just looking at it from our point of view. What is it like for us handling all those, you know, fairly difficult situations that we've been dealing with in the last couple of years, and indeed, of course, are very much dealing with at the moment with everything that's going on in Ukraine and in Russia. So it's going to be a fascinating show, and I'm sure there can be lots of comments from the audience about things that are that are going on around the world. But each week we like to share with you some breaking news, and we have a little video about what's going on in our world. So let me just start off today with our breaking news for today. So there we are, loads of breaking news. Congratulations to everybody who's been promoted this week, everybody who's moved job, to people who've won awards. Congratulations to you all. I want to give a particular shout out to somebody I know is in the audience. So a big shout out to Henri de Saussure from France. Henri posted on LinkedIn a little while ago that he'd suffered a heart attack back in October, which obviously was a horrendous time for him and his family. But Henri is very much now back in harness and back at work. And Henri, it's great to have you back in our audience. So so a big get well and be healthy from all of us in the global mobility community to you, Henri. And I know some people tune into the show because they want their CPE credits. And I always promise to share the CPE credits, and here they are. So whether you want your CPE credits for your GMS or CRP qualifications, which are courtesy, of course, of our good friends at Worldwide ERC, or whether you want your credits for HRCI or SHRM, which are provided by our good friends at Rocket Mortgage, and big shout out to Lisa Fontana, who I see is in the audience today. So those are the credits that you'll need. I'll leave that up there for a moment. But then the next stage, of course, is we do want to talk about immigration. We always like to have our immigration update. So without further ado, let me bring onto the stage our one and only, our resident expert. And indeed, she's got some breaking news of her own, which no doubt we'll share in a moment. But let's bring on the one and only Julia Onslow Cole. Hey Julia, how are you doing?
Yeah, very well, very well. Yes.
And you've got a little bit of breaking news of your own. I gather a couple of appointments have come your way. So tell us about those.
Oh yes, so it's quite exciting. So I've joined the advisory board of GME, which was announced today with Alex Felsted. So it's very exciting.
And a big shout out to Alex and all the gang at GME.
Yes, really exciting. And also I was appointed as Deputy Chair of the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So that was an exciting appointment, especially as my first debut on BBC was to actually talk about the budget, which wasn't my familiar. I should have had expat Pat with me, expat tax Pat. So yeah, no, it's been very good. I just wanted to say, also echoing what you said about Henri, and it's so nice that he's back with us today. And also, well done to everyone who's moved jobs, but especially I noticed Nicola out there. So that's really great news going to CGI. So.
Absolutely, yes. Congratulations, Nicola, one of our regulars in the audience. So, so it's congratulations to you and to everybody else. So, Julia, tell us where we're going today on our immigration updates.
Yeah, so well, we're basically going to China, Hong Kong and Singapore, and I wanted to thank my Fragment colleagues Becky Shia and Mark Buchanan for the updates. But basically China is rigidly following the zero COVID policy, and the cases of COVID are really going up now in China, which is quite disappointing. And really I just wanted to say, obviously the travel ban is still in place, and you need a PU visa invitation letter if you have a work visa for China to get back to China. But I just wanted to make a couple of points from a global mobility perspective. And that is, it's actually very hard to move around in China now. So if you have, for example, any regional heads who need to go from, say, Shanghai to Beijing, and I thought this was quite a really good example, because a lot of people who are on assignment do that sort of journey a lot. Then 48 hours before you go into Beijing, because Shanghai is now regarded as medium risk, you'd have to do a COVID test. Then 72 hours after being in Beijing, you have to do another test. So it's actually very difficult and quite time consuming and logistically hard to move around inside China. And I think that's sort of an important point when you think that it's difficult to move fresh people into China. So if you're actually asking the people that you've got there to sort of move around and do quite a few jobs, it's hard for them. And just looking at Shanghai to get a sort of sense of what's happening in really in China, there's 600 COVID cases. And obviously that may not sound a lot when you consider how many cases that we've had generally, but that's an awful lot for Shanghai. And in the last 4 days, they tested 35 million people. I mean, isn't that impressive?
35 million, wow.
35 million. And when I got the figures, I just said to Becky, I can't believe that. How can you possibly do it? And she explained that they have people coming to compounds like the ones that she lives in. And what they do is they test people individually, but they put them in batches of 10, so that then if there's a positive, they can go back to that batch of 10. But that's a sort of quick way of doing it. But the other thing to be aware of is, even if you're a Chinese citizen, and even if the travel ban doesn't apply, if you leave China and you want to come back into China, you might not need a PU invitation letter because you're Chinese, but you still have to have a green health code. And we've got lots of examples now of people who've gone from China to the US, picked up COVID, and then it's taken them 3 to 6 months to get back to China. And then once they get back, they have to do the 14 days quarantine in a government facility and 7 days at home. So a lot of people are very, very nervous, quite rightly, about traveling. So, I think all of these points are really worth bearing in mind when you're looking at China. I mean, there is a green channel that you can get your PU invitation letter quite quickly if you're a US citizen. But really, overall, in the scheme of things, it's very difficult in China. And the dependent issues.
Yeah, so it sounds like the moral of the story here is that a lot of people are beginning to let COVID fade into the recesses of their mind, and they're concentrating on other things, on the world getting back to normal, and of course, in all the crisis in Ukraine and Russia. But actually, for some parts of the world, you mentioned China, I know you're going to mention Hong Kong and Singapore as well, COVID should very much be in the forefront of your thinking.
Yes. Well, I think definitely for China. The breaking news for Hong Kong, which is, as everyone knows, has been really crippling quarantine requirements. And this has made a lot of companies consider their positions. A lot of companies are moving from Hong Kong, particularly into Singapore. But the breaking news is that despite this trend of these higher cases, and we've seen terrible cases in Hong Kong. And of course, with Hong Kong, one of the problems is that because they had the zero COVID policy and they had hardly any COVID, a lot of people, particularly elderly people in Hong Kong, were not vaccinated. So now we're seeing the serious consequences of COVID hitting quite hard. But nevertheless, on the 1st of April, Hong Kong government, Carrie Lam, has announced they're going to open up the 9 countries, including the UK, Australia, the US, that were banned, flights were banned, are going to be allowed to fly from the 1st of April. And they're reducing the quarantine down to a much more acceptable 14 days, 7 in a facility and 7 at home. So really opening up, but in the face of all these, appalling deaths and terrible COVID troubles. So finally, I just wanted to quickly say about Singapore, very popular destination now, a lot of people coming there from Hong Kong, big problems with things like schooling. Schooling is 7 times oversubscribed, private school places, really quite difficult if you're moving people to Singapore. But there's announced a new points-based system and an increase in salaries. Now, the increase in salaries we did talk about a few weeks ago, but they're increasing quite a lot from the 1st of September. So if you were on 4,500, if the ceiling was 4,500, it's moving to 5,000 minimum Singapore dollars a month. If you're in financial services, it's 5 to 5.5. So it's quite a significant leap. And from next September, it's going to apply to renewals. But the big news is the points-based system. And this points-based system is coming in next September. It's in addition to the advertising requirement, in addition to the fair consideration framework. And it's quite complex because it gives points for individuals, for employees. So you've got high salary, you'll get more points. But it also gives points to employers. And it's points for things like diversity. So, that's a really, really important. And also what it does, it compares your competitors. So if, for example, you say you have so many nationalities at this level, it doesn't just take that, it actually says, well, in your industry group, they have less nationalities in that level and more local employees. So it's quite rigorous. And the only sort of good bit of news out of it is that there is going to be a tool, and the Singaporean authorities are good at that, which should help employers sort of work out the complexities of the points-based system.
Okay, so a complex system, but presumably one where, with the correct advice, it's a manageable and understandable system that's coming.
Yeah, and hopefully with the tool that the government will supply as well. I think governments are getting much better at that. Even in the UK, they are giving employers good tools to navigate these systems.
Okay, well, Julia, thank you so much for that update, and once again, many congratulations on your appointment to the advisory board of GME and to the your deputy chair of the London Chamber of Commerce. That's wonderful news for you, and much credit to you. So what we're now going to do is we're going to bring on one of our change makers to talk about their company and about the charity that they support. So everybody, you know what to do. Hit those buttons. I want to see the hearts on the screen. I want to see the thumbs up, the like buttons. I want to see the applause as we say a big, big thank you to Julia Onslow-Cole. And we welcome on Kieran, who is our change maker for the week. So let's bring on the one and only Kieran. Kieran, welcome back. You've been on the show before. It's always good to see you. So, Kieran, tell us, where in the world are you today?
Thanks, Brian. Thanks to be on this show. And today I'm out of my regular place. I work out of Bangalore, but today I'm in Chennai, getting used to the heat here. But still, I'm in the cool of my room here, so doing great.
Okay, and I just know you as Kieran SN, and I think everybody does, but what does SN stand for?
Oh yeah, it's a little difficult. So S is my father's name, which is Subhash, and N is my family name, which is Nadgir, that is spelled as Nadgir. I generally felt that people would have difficulty in pronouncing it, so I've tried to shorten it up.
You're very, very kind, and you've saved me my blushes. You will stay forever, Kieran SN, for me. I won't even attempt to embarrass myself by mispronouncing.
Absolutely.
So tell me, Kieran, for those who don't know HCL, just tell us a bit about your company.
Okay, so HCL is the top third global IT company based out of India, the top 3 in India, and we're based out of 50 countries. We have an employee strength of 2 lakh employees globally. We are a global IT services product company as well. And we have been in this industry for the last 45 years plus. We've been one of the pioneers of the Indian IT industry, and it was founded by Mr. Shiv Nadar. So it's a growing company. We've been doing great, and we have close to 160 nationalities spread across 50 countries, Brian. So really a global multinational company.
It's really, really impressive. And of course, you are one of our change makers. It's so wonderful to have you on board as a change maker. If anybody else is interested in being a change maker, and this is open to in-house mobility professionals only, then do do get in contact with me or any of the Benivo team. To be a change maker, we want in-house mobility professionals with a real passion for technology and also a passion for doing good in the world. And every change maker nominates a charity, and then we at Benivo make a small donation or a reasonable donation each quarter to the charity on their behalf as a thank you to them for being part of our change maker group. So Kieran, tell us a bit about the charity that you nominated and why you nominated them.
Yeah, there's a small interesting story, I would say, Brian, is that I'm born and brought up in Bangalore, and I have seen the urbanization in Bangalore take place in the last decade or so. And when I was speaking to Talia yesterday and a few days back, being a true hardcore Bangalorean, I have noticed that there's a particular bird which is called as a sparrow. I'm sure a lot of you would know about it. And as we were growing up in Bangalore, Bangalore had a lot of sparrows around. And I think that's were really fun to play around with. You could hear the chirping early in the morning. You could just walk across, and you had a lot of trees in Bangalore. Good, bad, ugly, urbanization has taken over. You have a lot of trees and parks vanishing from Bangalore, and probably many more cities as well. I felt that there's a need for us that if we have to give back something to the nature, and I think we all would agree that COVID has told us that it's high time that we return back to nature what we have forcibly taken. So I was very much moved by this charity, which talks about planting trees and preserving them and to grow them as plant saplings and see that they grow up into trees, lake rejuvenation, and other things. I thought that it is more apt for me to get associated with that. So a little bit of story of losing of the touch with the old Bangalore, and probably I hope that a small contribution will help.
Absolutely. Well, that's a lovely story, Kieran, and yeah, that's just an amazing charity to pick up. And I'm always fascinated by the complete mix of different charities that people support. We've had, some with, supporting hospices, some with, I don't know, sort of animal welfare. I mean, environmental charities, charities for hunger. I mean, all sorts of different charities around the world, and it's just lovely to see. I noticed in the comments I've been reminded by my boss, by Nitsan. Of course, it's not a small donation; it's a large donation that we make. Each individual one may be modest, but we're making about I think we make about 60 or 100 of these donations each quarter to different charities around the world, and it's an amazing initiative that Nitsan and the team at Benivo have come up with, and it's wonderful to see so many people in the mobility community around the world have shared our passion both for technology and for doing good in the world. As I say, and I've said up there, if you're interested in being a change maker, then do message us, and we would love to have you on board as one of our change makers. So Kieran, it's been great having you on the show. You've been on the show before, and I'm sure we'll have you on the show again. But thank you so much for coming on board now. And we'll say goodbye to you. Again, as Pallavi says, the disappearance of sparrows and birds in urban India is quite striking. Thank you for highlighting this. It is a big issue. Another thing that we like to do with the view from the top and here at Benivo is to really support and congratulate people in our industry and pull the industry. And one of the ways that we are doing that is with our Rising Stars initiative. We've had a top 100 list, which of course, Kieran, you've been on, but we're now trying to do a Rising Stars list. And those are people who are either aged under the age of 35 or have got less than 10 years global mobility. And I'll just play a quick video to remind everybody that nominations are open. And whilst that's video going on, I will take Kieran off stage and bring our wonderful producer, Tally, on stage. So everybody, let's do what you do best. Hit the buttons, hit the hearts, hit the likes, hit the applause. Let's say a big thank you to Kieran for being a change maker and telling us about his charity, the birds and the sparrows. And also, let's all remember that we want to thank our rising stars who are going to be the next generation of global mobility leaders. Tally, as ever, great to see you, and so much thanks for all the work you do behind the scenes. I tell you that if this show goes smoothly, and I hope it does, it is always down to the amazing Tally behind the scenes. So Tally, tell us what news you've got for us today.
Yeah, Brian, it's good to be here. And I'm happy to say that the world is starting to finally open. And so we're having opportunities to meet face to face. So the event that I wanted to mention today is the live FEM Amsterdam Global Mobility Conference. So this is a one-day event that will be full of learning and networking with workshops, panels, roundtables, master classes. And FEM will also be an opportunity to meet our Beth Nielsen. So Beth will be speaking at the conference, and she's already fully booked to meet people on Thursday. But if anyone is planning to come earlier on Wednesday, please let her know. I'll send her email in the when I go back to the green room, so in the comments, and she will be happy to get an earlier flight to meet you guys. So
Beth will be on stage in a moment. So again, you can get to meet Beth online, everybody, but if you want to meet her in person and you happen to be in Amsterdam in early April when Beth is there, then obviously reach out to Beth directly. That's brilliant. So what else is news, Tally?
The other thing is, on a different note, I want to remind our viewers that Benivo is offering free use of our technology solutions to support companies with employees that are impacted by the war in the Ukraine. So if you have, whether you are a client or not, we can assist in providing instant fund transfers to anyone in need. And we, of course, waive all fees and charges for that. And in addition to that, if you have employees that are unexpectedly relocating to Yerevan, Armenia, we can also assist them with the free use of our platform. It's the home of our Benivo development team, so we have a lot of helpful information about it. So again, I will send the link to the to our information page, and please use it. And I'll also be happy to answer any question you may have back in the green room.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that, Tally, and thank you again for all the work that you do behind the scenes. What I want to do now, of course, is move on to talk about the main segment of our show, and we're going to spend the next half hour talking about Liberty Global. I'm delighted in the green room. We've got Maria Bouwsma from Liberty Global. We've also got Matt Cheek and Beth Nielsen from Benivo. So everybody, you know how it works. I've told you once, I've told you 100 times. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button, and let's say a thank you to Tally for all the hard work that she does, but also a big, big, big BenivoBites welcome for Maria, Beth, and Matt. Hello there, we've got Beth, we've got Matt, we've got Maria, we have the green team, which is just hearing a child in the background. I'll bring them on stage. We'd love to see them.
She's just having dinner, so I don't think I can persuade them to come this way, actually.
Oh well, if we get a moment. But what are they? What's their names?
So the oldest one is Caleb, and he's 7 years old. And the youngest one is Leia, and she's almost 1.5 years old.
Oh, just adorable, just adorable. So Maria, thank you so much for being a guest on the show. I know it's not the best time of day for people with childcare and daycare, but I know that can sometimes be problematic for some. But that's the problem with doing a global show. It's always a bad time. If it's any consolation, I know it's a bad time for you. It's a lot worse if you're in Sydney, where it's 3 a.m. in the morning right now. But Maria, so many thanks. And where in the world are you today?
So I live in the Netherlands, and the Liberty Global office is close to Amsterdam. But right now I am working from home, so I'm close to Leiden.
Okay, and tell us a bit about yourself. For those in the audience who don't know you, I'm sure there's a lot of friends of yours and work colleagues and who are tuning in, and that's the way it tends to work. But for those who don't know us, I know when we were chatting earlier, you were telling me about your childhood and the very many countries that you sort of lived in as a child, a bit of a TCK, of a third culture kid, or an expat brat, as I sometimes call them. No offense. So tell us about yourself. Where were you born? Where did you live as a child growing up? Tell us a bit about your expat background.
Sounds good. So one of the things I always have, because people ask me, where are you from? Definitely in America, or someone else who listens to my English. And, I always say, well, that's a good question. My passport says I'm Dutch. But if you would ask me, I probably feel South American, and probably, wherever home is at that moment. But I was born in Africa and Tanzania. My father worked for the development aid for the Dutch government. So, which is amazing, because you get to go to amazing countries, you get to see amazing countries. So I don't actually remember much of Tanzania, but from there we moved back to the Netherlands for a little while, and then we moved to Guatemala, and then I spent most of my childhood in Colombia. So those people that have watched the Netflix series Escobar, yes, I did actually. I watched that with my partner just recently. And he asked, well, did you live through that? I'm like, yeah, I remember the TV being on the news, and you'd see those things coming past. And I had a great time. It's a beautiful country. So anyone looking for destinations after COVID, we can travel again. I would suggest Colombia. And from there, I moved back to the Netherlands because they thought, our children don't speak that much Dutch, so let's put them back in there and send them to an international school. Makes perfect sense. And my father went on to an assignment in Nicaragua and to Cape Verde. And it's great having that experience and then going into global mobility, because I think traveling to the countries, though, it's fine. And I had a very romanticized idea of the Netherlands. When I get back to the Netherlands, it took me about a year to settle in the Netherlands. And I had that culture shock when I repatriated back to the Netherlands.
They say that in some ways reverse culture shock is worse than normal, because you don't expect it, and also that culture shock going to a similar country is actually worse in some ways than culture shock going to a completely dissimilar country, because again, you're not expecting it.
No, but I went from two very different cultures. I mean, I went from going to school where I had to wear school uniforms every day to a school here where, you'd walk onto the school grounds, and at that moment, it was a long time ago. Students were smoking in front of the school. I'd be like, whoa, that was so it is very different cultures, but it also gave me the perspective and the curiosity of asking people, when they do move cultures, how is that, and what do you experience, and really follow the journeys, as it was the first time for me. So it's really helped me in my career in global mobility. Yeah.
Okay, and you've worked obviously for some pretty big name companies in your career. I think you started off at Shell, didn't you? So
I did start at Shell. So I took a position at Shell after university for 6 months, thinking, I'll figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And those 6 months turned into 3 years. I did some work. Shell put a shared service center in Krakow, and I went to Krakow. And it was brilliant because I had such a different expectation of Krakow, and it was Krakow is an amazing place to go to too. And I had a great time just really setting up the shared service center there. And from Shell, I moved to Cargill, a totally different industry. But it really taught me a lot about global mobility and moving to different countries. So I spent 7 years at Cargill, and then I was asked to help set up the shared services in Bulgaria. And from
yeah. You've really been around. I mean, as somebody said, I think it was Nicola, maybe we can just get that one back up stage. You are global mobility personified. Slight jealousy induced by the story of Maria Bouwsma. Global mobility impersonate. I think he means in person. Absolutely. I mean, you are it personified. You are global mobility. So there we go. We found it now. If we ever want to have a poster child for global mobility, we have you, Maria. So tell us, let's move on. Tell us a little bit about what mobility is like at Liberty Global. And indeed, people may not know Liberty Global, but I'm sure people know your brands. So tell us about some of your brands and tell us a bit about mobility.
So Liberty Global is a technology. We try to connect people, and I'm sure, I hope most of you have either a product of Liberty Global or use one of our brand names. So in the UK, we have Virgin Media, which has now merged with with O2. So VMO2 is a joint venture of ours. In the Netherlands, Vodafone Ziggo is also a joint venture, and they use our products. In Switzerland, we have Sunrise UPC, and in Eastern Europe, we still have the UPC brand in some of our countries. And for the Belgian folks, Telenet, we used to have Liberty Latin America, but the connections are a little bit less there. So those are part of the brands of really keeping people connected. And you understand during the pandemic, it was very important to have that stable internet and ensure that all those Zoom and team calls could go on.
So the reason we carried on working was because of you. I mean that in a positive way. You enabled us to allow us to carry on working in the pandemic. So many thanks to everybody at Liberty Global and indeed the other companies that have actually made remote working possible. I mean, effectively, you make remote working possible in many ways. But let's move on. Tell us about the sort of populations, the moves you do and the types of moves. As I understand it, you do a lot around both mobility and new joiners. So tell us a bit about those and those populations.
So one of our bigger populations are the new joiners. We look for talent over the whole world. And of course, we want to bring them into our main hubs. So we do help them move countries from all over the world into either the Netherlands, UK, or US, or Switzerland or Belgium, and really support them because we want them to have a smooth landing when they join us. It makes a good impression, but it also helps the person. If you make that movement as stress-free as possible, and there'll always be stress, then they're ready to work and ready to embrace the new culture, and we can really help them in that landing and try to find the right partners to do so. So that's one of our programs, and the other one is the mobility. So we have a big graduate population joining us every year, and partly they join us from other countries, and then they also go on rotation, and they're crucial for our business. I mean, they're the rising stars within Liberty Global, so we also want to give them a smooth move and a smooth rotation when they're with us.
Cool. And it is a tech show, so I suppose we ought to start talking about technology and about the Benivo technology platform that I know supports Liberty Global. So, Matt, do you want to start off by telling us a little bit about how Benivo has supported Liberty Global? And Maria, please, obviously, chip in here. I think you're on mute, Matt.
Step one. Yes, absolutely. And so as Maria was just teeing up there, one of the big groups that they need to serve for the global mobility team is the global new joiners. And as you also heard her talk about, Liberty Global is a company of many companies. And so we are working to create an end-to-end experience for employees who are joining Liberty Global and going through a relocation, but to be able to customize that experience to each one of the unique companies that they're joining in different locations.
So just so I understand this, so
Around Europe.
the platform is customized for each brand that uses it, and there's no cost for doing that. That's just part of the standard.
There's no cost for doing it. We haven't done the full set of all companies under the Liberty Global umbrella for transparency's sake, but we have done a few, and we'll point them out today. But I think, Maria, one of the main objectives that we had in starting to work with you was to deliver that end-to-end experience for employees, to have everything in a one-stop shop, and that's one of the things that we invested a bit in accomplishing with you up front, in addition to solving cash flow challenges, which we are going to talk about as well.
Yeah, so let me start on the first one. I think, Matt, you raised, we had different suppliers coming in at that moment, and we wanted to give the graduate the best kind of experience. So that's where the Benivo platform was used to kind of tie the various suppliers that we did have.
So what we're saying is we're using it to access the various different DSP partners. Is that? I mean, we say a bit more about that, maybe, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. How about I show as we talk? I can also.
That sounds cool. Okay, let's start doing some demo then.
All right.
Okay, so is it ready for me to show? So I'll bring it up.
Ready to go.
There we go.
All right. So here we are. We're going to take a quick peek at the Liberty Global experience that we've designed with the Global Mobility team under Maria. And a couple things to point out. So for one, Liberty Global is a group of many companies. And we have put our, as Brian said, free and unique branding into place. So we have both the brand under Liberty Global for those who are joining the Liberty Global organization, and we have a different built part of the system for the most recent one that we've done is for the Sunrise UPC subsidiary of Liberty Global. So behind each one of these platforms is unique content, the unique brand to the entity that the employee is joining. And for everybody, we have built the right settling in experience for the destination that they are going inbound to. So under the objective of that one-stop shop for employees, I wanted to point out a few things that we invested in doing with the team. First one, over in our priority action set defined with Liberty Global, you have a end-to-end brief of your whole relocation benefits. We call this a digital brief. It's bite-sized content that you can go through on your phone, and it will give you the primer of what you are eligible for in the policy that you are receiving. So after you have that brief, you can continue forward and actually get some things done. So something practical that you need to do is to actually send Liberty Global your arrival dates, let them know how you're going to arrive and when you're going to arrive. That's information that the team needs to know, and they can use this tool to send it directly in. And you can get through practical things like getting a local transport card or setting up your DigiD. In this case, this is a specific action for going inbound to the Netherlands. And we have also invested in creating the welcome experience for building excitement with new joiners. So there's a fun story I wanted to call attention to. There is the ability in the platform to deliver welcome gifts to your employees. And in the case of Amsterdam, we've customized a very special one that Liberty Global employees have used in a really fun way. Maria, did you want to quickly recap the story that I'm referencing here?
Definitely. So we did a trial with Benivo, and the first group we trialed it on was our graduates, because of they're the most digital savvy group. And as I was saying, the minute that a graduate hears that they're moving somewhere, or those people, they immediately, I mean, I do the same thing. I grab my phone and go like, where am I going? So that's where Benivo really helps to go for that 24/7. And these graduates, they came together, they looked at that welcome gift, and they all decided together to go on that boat trip in Amsterdam, which is great because it also upholds one of our values. One of our values is united, and together, united, they decided to take on that boat trip and really get to know each other. So it was really nice to hear that the graduates did this and had a great boat ride through the Amsterdam canals.
That's right. Really, really fun story.
That's really cool. Matt, there's a question that's come in. I just want to ask of you, and this is from Stephanie Aker. Let's see if I can just pull that up on screen. Here, with the multiple branding for a single client, would the mobility manager have a single portal or single sign-on?
Yes. Yes, the different branding is for, well, we can choose to set it up in the desired way. You can have a broken out reporting for different HR teams, or you can have it all consolidated, or you can in fact have both. You can have an account that has access to all of that data set, and then you can have different permission levels on the back end to allow the relevant HR managers to only see information about their audience.
Okay, and we were talking about the welcome experience. I've pulled the screen up. Is there more of that demo you wanted to share with us, Matt?
Yes, let's point out a couple more things. All right, are we sharing again?
Yep, we're all shared.
Great. So building on Maria's point about helping new joiners get a feel for where they're going, we have the full destination section. This is powered as well by insights from employees who have done this exact move in the past, and it covers all the categories that you might need to know. And it also is available for an employee's partner or spouse who is going along with them. They can invite them into their own account. So that is a number of pieces of destination content and learning available on a self-serve basis. And Liberty Global is also providing on-the-ground services for some people. So we wanted to build that one-stop shop to enable you, the employee, to get to where you need to go quickly and easily. So one example of that is over in Key Contacts, you can get directly in touch with the relocation company that they have selected for going inbound to the Netherlands.
And that's Heart Relocation. So shout out to everybody, my good friend.
Shout out to Heart Relocations.
Heart Relocation.
And you can get right in touch. We make it very easy to either schedule a session, give a direct call, or initiate a message directly from the platform. And the same applies, of course, for the internal support team, who are also available to help employees as they go. And for all support and assistance using this piece of technology, you also have the Benivo team available by live chat 7 days a week. The final piece I wanted to point out in that one-stop shop is that for global new joiners, they're also learning about Liberty Global as a firm, and we wanted to give some preview as to the types of things that you are going to be getting access to as a Liberty Global employee, even in advance of your start date. So this gives a short brief on the Liberty Global HR portal, what type of information is going to be available to you as a new hire, and a number of pieces of advice and content for building the most out of your time at the company. So the final thing that I know that we wanted to touch on, and I'm going to pass the microphone over to Beth and Maria to talk a little bit about this, is the solutions built into the platform for solving the pain of not having access to cash flow before you have started working.
Absolutely. I wanted to bring you into the conversation, Beth. You've been sitting there patiently as we've been talking. I know that the financial challenges are something that's very, very dear to your heart. And I think it's very, very helpful to everybody at Liberty. So maybe Beth and Maria, you can just tell us a bit about the financial challenges and how the technology is supporting the cash flow.
Sure. So one of the most exciting things I find about Pay Later is the fact that it wasn't our idea. So it wasn't Benivo's idea. It was in response to an actual challenge, an actual problem brought to us by one of our first clients, Google, who said, we're moving people, but they're in their early stages of their career. and before we get them on payroll, they need to pay some money upfront to settle in for their accommodation. And it's something I myself had when I first moved to London. You suddenly have to find 6 weeks worth of rent prior to moving in anywhere. So it's a problem that we all had. And from a diversity perspective, I was really lucky. My parents were able to lend it to me, and I'd saved some up. But not everyone is in that situation. And I know that, Maria, you're going to very kindly speak to us about how this was a problem for Liberty Global as well, and how your employees have been using Pay Later.
Yeah. And Beth, you mentioned, right, it's kind of the chicken and the egg, right? You're moving to countries and you need to find a flat, and then you have to pay maybe 1 or 2 months deposit. And we had this, I mean, you have graduates, so people just coming fresh out of university. And it's a struggle, and it's a struggle of how do we get those funds to you as quickly as possible? And that's where the Pay Later really comes in very handy for all these groups, because it helps them to pay for that deposit and everything else, and makes, once again, that seamless, smooth experience there, and makes their employee experience much better. If not, they're going to stress of, where am I going to get the money? How does that work? And that's where Benivo really solves with that Pay Later. And I think that the brilliant part, so I was talking to someone this morning about the Pay Later, and they asked, well, what kind of administration does the company have to do? And I said, we don't have to do anything. Benivo takes care of it, which is brilliant too.
I think that's a really great point to highlight. Sorry, Brian. I was going to say
it is something which is unique in the industry, and I think if we can just pull it up, Miriam made a point. Miriam's from Heart Relocation, who I know obviously works with you guys at Liberty Global, and she says this. She said the Pay Later solution gave a lot of peace of mind for the graduates. Great solution for people with a lower budget.
Yeah,
but
and Miriam is the one supporting us with the graduates every year, so she knows the pain that they go through.
And I think it's key to say that it's available to everybody, but not everybody has to use it. So you don't have to put your hand up and say, "Oh, can I please have a salary advance, or can you please find a way to get me money?" Which previously, as Maria highlighted, could have been an administrative burden. Even if you're willing to do it as a company, there's the cost associated with it. There's the admin, there's the tracking. And there's also someone has to put their hand up and ask for it. With Pay Later, it's available to everybody, and it's not a huge amount, but it can be a life-changing amount at that time in your career. So it's something that, as you said, Brian, we think is unique to Benivo, and just such a fantastic solution that can be available to everybody, not just to early careers, but certainly most popular with the early career demographic.
Okay, we've got here, I think on screen, it's showing €3,400 as the amount that is on offer.
Yeah. So that was decided by Maria and her team, or the Liberty Global team, but it can be whatever amount, up to obviously a certain limit that the company would like to offer. And we make it available just before they move, so about a month before they move, and they pay it back only once they start getting paid through payroll. So it can be really, really life-changing for those individuals, and can in some cases be the difference between them accepting a job or not. And I don't know if we have any Liberty Global cases where we know about whether this was the decision maker, but we're certainly speaking to people and feedback that we've received from other companies, it can be, which again supports that whole DEI&B.
We even have dashboards that support that, don't we?
Exactly. So for those people who would like to see that information or have access to that information from a reporting perspective, you can see which employees are using that. So which locations are they relocating from, for example, which might give you an indication for their demographic data.
Okay. And Maria, I mean, we've talked about the importance of welcome. I mean, and in your world and your, of Liberty Global and your culture there, I mean, how important is it to be able to have employees feel welcome from even before they join, during that joining process, and then the pre-boarding and then the onboarding process?
It's so very important to make them feel welcome and make them feel supported when they're moving, because as I always say to people, they're moving from something that they know their routines and everything, and they're actually moving into a black hole because they don't know anything about the culture. They don't know, how is my routine going to look like? And the more you can support them in that with the digital tools that you have, like Benivo, and with your suppliers like Heart Relocation, it just really helps them into that smooth transition and make them feel welcome. And definitely with a company like Liberty Global, so we have so many nationalities. I always have it when I'm walking into the building. I love it because I don't know which language to speak. I don't know if I should speak English, Spanish, or Dutch, because you can speak all of them when you walk in, which I enjoy. It's like coming into Miami. That's the same experience I have there. So it is very important that everyone feels welcome, and definitely even before they join us, and that they feel that support from the company.
Okay, and to finish up, I've got a few comments I've seen coming in here. I've got one from Gasharan, and he says, do your graduates not get a mobility premium or similar so they don't have to pay it later? And I think the point, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the point is this is money that can be paid before they join, before they're on payroll. So actually it's before a mobility premium takes place. But maybe, Maria, you could just talk a bit to Gasharan's question.
Of course, yes, they do get a mobility premium. They do get a mobility premium when they move, but it is the challenge of how to ensure that you pay it, because it's going to be paid with their first payroll, and they usually come in at the beginning of the month and we pay at the end of the month, and they have to, in that period of time, find housing, pay a deposit. So this is where that pay later feature of Benivo is really helpful, because they don't have that stress of, where am I going to find that deposit before my first paycheck?
Okay, and another comment that's come in actually from Miriam. She said, the Liberty Global Graduates Program is the perfect example of how working together with several partners, respecting each other's strengths and complementing each other, Benivo, Perch Peak, and Heart. Actually, I gave a shout out to Heart. I haven't given a shout out to Perch Peak. Big shout out to Paul and all the team at Perch Peak. How respecting each other's strengths and complementing each other, Benivo, Perch Peak, and Heart can make a great service package. We should do this more often. No more competition, but working together to offer the perfect solution. And Maria, from your point of view, how are you finding, people working together? Hopefully that's something that is working smoothly from your perspective.
Definitely, and that was the challenge I had at the beginning of really bringing those three partners together, three different suppliers with all of their bespoke things, and making it as seamless for the groups that we serve. And it's great. I mean, what Miriam said, you uphold one of our core values. You do it united, Perch Peak, Heart, and Benivo, which is great to see. And we have had great feedback that works, because that was one of the small challenges I had when I trialed that. And it's great to see that it has worked so well.
Okay, and I didn't ask before, but roughly how many people do you move a year?
So we move around.
Let's go post-pandemic.
Even during the pandemic, Brian, I thought, when the pandemic started, I'm like, it's going to quiet down a little bit. And the best move I had was during full lockdown, moving someone from Paris to the Netherlands, and that went really well. So we move around 100 people per year, and I do expect actually that those numbers will be growing in the next few years.
Okay, and Matt, we're getting towards the end of the show. But any final comments from your perspective in terms of Benivo working with Liberty Global, and indeed, of course, with Heart and Perch Peak?
Just that I echo the comments. I think we have managed to trade on each other's strengths and work together to create the end-to-end seamless experience that Maria was trying to build for employees. So. It's never done. We look forward to expanding more of that work to touch more of the people who are moving around within the group. So hopefully that is the part of the next chapter.
Okay, excellent. Well, let me bring it back onto stage. I've got our producer Tally. I've got Julia. And Kieran, I think, is camera off, but no, Kieran is here too. So the gang is back in town. I think all that really remains is for me to say thank you to everybody for participating. Thank you to everybody in the audience. Just a big reminder, first of all, that if you're in the Amsterdam area, Beth will be out on, it's the 8th of April, isn't it? So you'll be out there at FEM. Big shout out, of course, to all my friends and indeed former colleagues at FEM, and I wish you a very, very successful event out there. Julia, once again, many congratulations on your appointments, and a shout out to my friends at Global Mobility Executive. Maria, many thanks to you for being on the show and telling us all about Liberty Global. Kieran, many, many thanks for all the work you do, both for HCL, but in this regard, in particular to the charity that you support, the Say Trees charity. And also, as Tally has just put up there, please, please, please nominate your rising star. Just to remind you, if you know of anybody in an in-house, i.e. a corporate role, not a supplier, who is aged either under the age of 35 or who has got less than 10 years experience of global mobility, they might be on your team, they might be your client, they might be somebody else you know in the industry, then please do nominate them, and you can nominate them directly on that Benivo page, benivo.com/nominate. I think that's the right thing. But anyway, thank you all, and there we go again. And we are back again next week when we've got Tales from the Front Line, and that's going to be about some of the stresses and strains we've all been feeling over the last couple of years in the global mobility professional. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you all again next week. Take care, and it's goodbye from all of us.